One, two, 3, 4, 5. Chapter 5. I recall many incidents of the summer of 1888 that followed my soul's sudden awakening. I did nothing but explore with my hands and learn the name of every object that I touched, these and learn their names and use. The more joyous and confident grow my sense of kinship with the rest of the world. When the time of daisies and buttercups came, Miss Sullivan took me by the hand across the fields, where men were preparing to eat for the seed, to the banks of the Tennessee River, and there, sitting on the warm grass, I had my first lessons in the beneficence of nature. I learned how the sun and the rain make to grow out of the ground every tree that is pleasant to the sight and good for good. How birds build their nests and live and thrive from land to land. How the squirrel, the deer, the lion, and every other creature find food and shelter. As my knowledge of things grew, I felt more and more the delight of the world I was in, long before I learned to do as soon in arithmetic or describe the shape of the earth. Miss Sullivan had taught me to find beauty in the fragrant woods, in every blade of grass, and in the curves and dimples of my baby sister's hand. She linked my earliest thoughts with nature and made me feel that birds and flowers and I were happy peers. But about this time I had an experience which taught me that nature is not always kind. One day, my teacher and I were returning from a long ramble. The morning had been fine, but it was growing warm and sultry when at last we turned our face homeward. 2 or 3 times we stopped to rest under a tree by the wayside. Our last halt was under a white cherry tree a short distance from the house. The shade was grateful, and the tree was so easy to climb that with my teacher's assistance I was able to scramble to a seat in the branches. It was so cold up in the tree that Miss Sullivan proposed that we have our luncheon there. I promised to keep still while she went to house to fetch it. Suddenly a change passed over the tree. All the sun's warmth left the earth. I knew the sky was black because all the heat, which meant light to me, had died out of the atmosphere. A strange odor came up from the earth. I knew it was the odor that always precedes a thunderstorm, and I nameless fear clutched at my heart. I felt absolutely alone, cut off from my friends and the fear earth. The immense, the unknown, the enfolded me. I remained still and expectant. A chilling terror crept over me. I longed for the teacher's return, but about all things I want to get down from that tree. There was a moment of sinister silence, then a multitudinous stirring of the leaves. A shiver ran through the tree, and the wind sang for a blast that would have knocked me off had I not clung to the branch with my main. The tree swayed and strained. The small twigs snapped and fell about me in showers. A wild impulse to jump seized me, but terror held me fast. I crouched down in the fur on the tree. The branches lashed about me. I felt the intermittent jarring that came now and then as if something heavy had fallen and the shout had traveled up till it reached the line it sat on. It worked my suspense of the highest point, and just as I was thinking, the tree and I should fall together. My teacher says my hand and helped me down. I clung to her, trembling with joy to feel the air under my feet once more. I have learned a new lesson. The nature's ways open war against her children, and undersosted took his treacherous claws. After the experience, it was a long time before I climbed another tree. The mere thought filled me with terror. It was the sweet allurement of the mimosa tree in full bloom that finally overcame my fears. One beautiful spring morning, when I was alone in the summer house, reading, I became aware of a wonderful subtle fragrance in the air. I stared up and indestructibly stretched out my hands. It seemed as if the spirit of spring had passed through the summer house. What is it? I asked. In the next minute, I recognized the odor of the mimosa blossom. I felt my way to the end of the garden, and knowing that the mimosa tree was near the fence at the turn of the path. Yes, there it was, all quivering in the warm sunshine, its blossom laden branches almost touching the lawn grass. Was there ever anything so exquisitely beautiful in the world before? Its delicate blossom shone from the slightest early touch, in seeming as if a tree of paradise had been transplanted to earth. I made my way through a shower of petals to the great trunk and for on 1 minute stood irresolute. Then, putting my foot in the broad space between the four branches, I pulled myself up into the tree. I had some difficulty in holding on, for the branches were very large, and the bar hurt my hands. But I had a delicious sense that I was doing something unusual and wonderful, so I kept on climbing higher and higher until I reached a little seat which somebody had built. There so long ago that it had grown part of the tree itself. I sat there for a long, long time, feeling like a fairy on a rosy cloud. After that, I spent many happy hours in my tree of paradise, thinking fair thoughts and dreaming bright dreams. Chapter 6. Heading out the cave to a language, and I was eager to learn to use it. Children who hear acquire language without any particular effort. The words that fall from others' lips they can on the wing, as the as it were, delightly, while the little leaf child must rot them by a slow and often painful process. But wherever the process, the result is wonderful. Gradually, from naming an object, we advance step by step until we have traversed the vast distance between our first stammering syllable and the sweep of thought in a line of the Shakespeare. At first, when my teacher told me about a new thing, I asked very few questions. My ideas were vague and my vocabulary was inadequate. But as my knowledge of things grew and I learned more and more words, my field of inquiry broadened, and I would return again and again. I would return again and again to the same subject, eager for further information. Sometimes a new word revived an image that some earlier experience had engraved on my brain. I remembered the morning that I first asked the meaning of the word love. This was before I knew many words. I had found a few early violets in the garden and brought them to my teacher. She tried to kiss me, but at that time I did not like to have any one kiss me except my mother. Miss Sullivan put her arm gently round me and fell into my hand. I loved Helen. What is love? I asked. She drew me closer to her and said, it is here. Point to my heart. Was bit I was conscientious of for the first time. Her words puzzled me very much because I did not then understand anything unless I touched it. I smelled the violets in her hand and asked words, having signs, a question which meant, is love the sweetness of flowers? No, say me teacher. Again I thought, the warm sun was shining on us. It is not love. I asked, pointing in the direction from which the heat came. It is not love. It seemed to me that there could be nothing more beautiful than the sun, whose warmth makes all things grow. But Miss Sullivan shook her head, and I was really puzzled and disappointed. I thought it strange that my teacher could not show my love. A day or two afterward, I was stringing beads of different sizes in symmetrical rows, two large beads, three small ones, and so on. I had made many mistakes, and Miss Sullivan had pointed them out again and again with gentle passion. Finally, I noticed a very obvious error in the sequence for an instant I concentrated my arranged the beats. Miss Sullivan touched my forehead and spelled with decided emphasis, think. In a flash I knew that the word was the name of the process that was going on my head. This was my first conscientious perception of a abstract idea. For a long time I was not thinking of the beats in my lap, but trying to find a meaning for love in the light of this new idea. The sun had been under a cloud all day, and there had been brief showers, But suddenly the sun broke forth in all its southern splendor. Again, I asked my teacher, "It is not love? Love is something like the clouds that were in the sky before the sun came out." She replied, "Then in simpler words than this." Which at the time I could not have understood. She explained, "You cannot touch the clouds, you know, but you feel the rain and know how glad the flowers in the thirsty earth are to have it after a hot day. You cannot touch love either, but you feel the sweetness that it pours into everything. Without love, you will not be happy or want to play." The beautiful truth bursts upon my mind. I feel that there were invisible lines stretched between my spirit and the spirit of others. From the beginning of my education, Miss Sullivan made it a practice to speak to me as she would speak to any hearing child. The only difference was that she spelled the sentence into my hand instead of speaking them. If it, I did not, the words and idioms necessary to express my thoughts, she supplied them, even suggesting conversation when I was unable to keep up my end of the dialogue. This process was continued for several years, for the deaf child does not learn in a month, or even in 2 or 3 years, the numberless idioms and expressions used in the simplest daily intercourse. The little hearing child learns this from constant repetition and imitation. The conversation he hears in his home stimulates in his mind and suggests topics and calls for the spontaneous expression of his own thoughts. This natural exchange for ideas is denied to the deaf child. My teacher related this determinate to supply the kinds of stimulus I lacked. This she did by repeating to me as far as possible, verbatim, that what she heard and by showing me how I could take part in the conversation. But it was a long time before I ventured to take the initiative, and still longer before I could find something appropriate to say at the right time. The deaf and the find it very difficult to acquire the amenities of conversation. How much more this difficult must be admitted in the case of those who are both deaf and blind. They cannot distinguish the tone of the voice or without assistance go up and down the gamut of tones that give significance to words, nor can they watch the expression of the speaker's face, and a look is often the very soul and the once one says.